Mr. Minnick helping his 2017 students figure out how to live life, because life is one big if statement. Often you're confronted with a true or false situation, like at a movie theater entrance, and you have to decide whether you're eligible to watch a restricted movie or just the PG-13 movies, or maybe you're only allowed to watch the G movies. This worksheet is like real life. Here goes. For each exercise, circle the print statement that executes, but cross out the print statements that do not execute. And if there's a logic error, which there is, hint, in one of these there's a logic error, write print logic error and explain it. Okay, let's do number one. Now, number one, I would not give you a logic error in the very first question of a worksheet like this. So let's just sit back and relax. This is so logical. I mean, it's just so easy. Age is a variable, and it's equal to 18. So it's good style when you're tracing a worksheet like this or code to make a little column for a variable that's being used in the code and put the value that it's equal to underneath. That's just good scratch work. So please do that somewhere in the right margin. Of course, you put your name up here, everybody, already by now. So I'm just stalling for my period 10 class to do what I just did there on their computer, on their iPad, I meant. So we've executed that line of code. Now we move on to this new kind of statement called an if, else if, else if. Now, in Python, they take the S out of else if, and they just call it elif, which that's the way it is. But it means else if. So here's how we execute and interpret this code. We always start at the top, and we ask ourselves true or false. We look at this control expression, also known as a Boolean expression. It simplifies to either true or false. Well, if you wanted to be really careful, plug the number 18 in for the variable age, and you just ask yourself, duh, is age greater than or equal to 17? Of course. So put a little T there above that, kind of like we did on some recent worksheets, I believe. And if there's a true in an if statement, that means the computer executes and does whatever is indented right below that. So the answer to number one is this print statement right here. If this executed in Trinket or on a computer, it would say that you can watch rated R and PG-13 movies. Well, is that logically correct? Sure, because if your age is 18, according to, I think, Pennsylvania or federal law, you can watch restricted movies, and certainly you can see PG-13 movies. Now, here's the kicker. Here's the tricky part. In an if, else if, else if, else if, else if kind of statement like this one is, once you do one of the parts and you circle like one of these prints, you ignore the rest of the prints. In fact, you ignore everything else because the computer doesn't go any further. Once it gets a true, it does that, and it doesn't even look at the other else ifs that are below. So the final answer here is that you can watch rated R and PG-13 movies. Continuing with exercise 2, we have another if, else if. Oh, that's slightly different. Look, number one was an if, else if, else if. Number two is an if, else if, else. Notice that you need these colons in these spots right here, but notice the else doesn't have a set of parentheses after it. The else is like the caboose of a train. It's just it always comes at the end if you have one. If you have else, which is optional, it always comes at the end. The if always comes at the beginning of an if, else if statement. That's just the way they have to be. The else, like I said, is optional, but it always comes at the very bottom. The middle parts of an if, else if, else if, else is the elifs. You can have as many train cars in the middle of a train as you want. Number two, you see there's one. In in all of these, there's only, number one, there were two else ifs. So that's just the way that works. Okay, let's clean this up here. I didn't mean to mark that up. Okay, number two, let's look closely at what's going on in number two. Well, number two, I'd like to involve somebody in this room to help me. Nathaniel, is age greater than or equal to 17 in exercise 2 when we get past that line of code and we get to this line of code? True or false?
False.
Correct. 14 is not greater than or equal to 17. So Nathaniel, for a good scratch work would put a little F there. And that means he does not do the print statement. In other words, he skips past it, Christian, and he trickles down like a waterfall to the next else if. Kind of like a pinball machine, you know. So now, Nathaniel, you have to evaluate the next control expression. True or false, Nathaniel, is 14, plug the 14 in here again for age, is it greater than or equal to 13, true or false?
True.
Good job. As soon as you get to a true, that means, Manny, you circle the part that's indented right below the true that you got. And you ignore everything else. Just like in exercise 1, we ignored everything after that first T. Here, we're ignoring after this T right here. Now, does this make logical sense? Did the coder do a good job coding this? Yeah. If you're 14, in the state of Pennsylvania at least, can you watch PG-13 movies but not R movies? Yeah, that makes logical sense. Let's move on then to number 3. But after I pause the video and take questions. Back on video. Okay, number 3. Now, in number 3, the variable age is equal to 10, so let's be careful here. So just a different exercise, different person with a different age will pretend at the local Fox movie theaters. Why I'm missing PA, in case you're watching this from like California or maybe Indonesia or some other country, because I have a lot of YouTube fans all over the place. Okay, back to...
Wait, Mr. Winnie, you just doxed our entire school.
That was fake news. We are not Why I'm Missing. We are in Shillington, Pennsylvania. Okay, back to number 3. Don't mess up my video anymore, people in this live audience. Age is equal to 10. We only have 4 minutes before the bell rings anyway. This is false. Manny knows that 10 is not greater than or equal to 17. So Manny crosses this out, and then Kristen looks at the next control expression, and she plugs in the 10, and she asks herself, is 10 greater than or equal to 13? She says false. So she trickles down, she crosses that out to get full credit if this were a graded worksheet. And guess what? When you get to the else, it happens no matter what, because there is no set of parentheses with a control expression to say false. This is just where everybody else, like this just happens. It prints, you can watch G movies. Does that make sense now logically? Sure. If somebody's 10 years old, they can watch G movies. So number 3 and PG, but I didn't put PG on this worksheet. So it's accurate with the given information. Number 4, now be careful. I'm running low on time, but we got to be really careful. If you ever take the AP exam, and here at Wilson, here at Governor Mifflin and Shillington, we're so smart, we sometimes take this AP computer science exam, it's only 10th graders. Those schools like Why I'm Missing, sometimes they don't even take the AP exam because there's no teacher that knows how to teach the computer science test. Well, anyway, number 4, age is equal to 19. So make a note of that on your scratch paper. Now we check out the first control expression. Quiet, please. I ask myself in my head, is 19 greater than or equal to 13? Sure, that's true. So that means we circle this, and we cross out the rest. And guess what? That's logically incorrect. 19-year-olders, it's saying cannot watch R movies. So whoever coded this made a logic mistake, and he or she needs to debug his project, and therefore the 4th step of the programming process is going to be, tricky. So sometimes there's bugs in code that doesn't make it work right. Maybe Netflix, when you download something, or you're logged in wrong and you can't watch something even though you're old enough, and maybe it's just glitchy software. Or the person working at the movie theater doesn't know what they're doing. Number 5, this is tricky. I got to do this in 1 minute. Age is equal to 10 again, so make a note of that. Plug in the little 10 here for age, and ask yourself, is 10 greater than or equal to 17? False. So cross out that print, and now we trickle down to a control expression that has an and in it. Plug the 10 in, and ask yourself, is 10 greater than or equal to 13? False. Anytime you have a false ANDed with anything else, that makes the whole thing false. You don't even have to go any further. That's a false. So cross this print out. And now we get to the else. When you get to the else, there's nothing blocking you. But now we have another if that's indented inside the else. This is called a nested if statement. Is age less than 6? No, it's not. 10 is not less than or equal to 6. So put a false there, cross that out, and circle this bottom print. Can a 10-year-old watch PG movies, but not PG-13? Yes. So that is logically correct.
So number 4.
In number 4, you should explain that these two should be reversed. So please write logic error and reverse those two. Submit this to Schoology by tomorrow's class to get the free points.